Ralița Vasileva, una dintre cele mai îndrăgite jurnaliste CNN International în perioada 1992-2014, acum profesoară de jurnalism în Statele Unite, s-a aflat pentru câteva zile în România. S-a bucurat să viziteze sediul Antena 3 CNN, unde spune că s-a simțit ca acasă. Jurnalista născută în Sofia a fost un model pentru generații de jurnaliști. Într-un interviu realizat de Sabina Iosub, Vasileva a vorbit în exclusivitate pentru Antena 3 CNN despre provocările meseriei de jurnalist, dar și despre cele mai frumoase momente ale carierei.
Thank you for joining me for World Report. I'm Ralitza Vasileva at the CNN Center in Atlanta.
Hello everybody, I'm Ralitza Vasileva. Welcome to our viewers around the world.
The annual G20 summit has wrapped up in Brisbane, Australia, with world leaders agreeing to a series of measures to boost the global economy.
Sunt momente pe care Ralița Vasileva și le amintește cu drag. Fosta jurnalistă CNN International a vizitat redacția Antena 3 CNN și a povestit care au fost evenimentele cheie din cariera ei.
Ralița Vasileva, in the middle of Antena 3 CNN newsroom. Welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here. It feels like back home at CNN. It's very similar, the operation, and brings back memories.
How was it for 23 years to be the anchor of CNN International?
It was the most amazing career you could wish for, and it was like a dream for me. I never expected, coming from Bulgaria, that I would ever be on CNN, and then things happened. I went for 1 year, and that 1 year turned into 23, so you never know in life what could happen.
I was thinking about all the big moments that you've covered as journalist. What was the one that marked you, let's say?
I would say all of them marked me for different reasons. They stay with you, you learn from them, you grow, but maybe it was 9/11 which really shook the world, and it transformed the entire world as we knew it. I remember working several hours, breaking news. The world was changing. Alliances were being reshaped. It was just transformative. And of course, everything that happened after that was really very consequential to the whole world, and it really changed the whole world. And we feel the effects of that.
The world is still changing with a war near us, near Romania. It somehow changed with the pandemic. How are these days for a former journalist and a professor for journalists?
I think once a journalist, always a journalist. Plus, I teach my students by doing. We come in the morning, we have an editorial meeting, we decide what stories are important for the audience.
How difficult was, after 23 years, to say somehow stop to the newsroom, to being on air every day?
Well, it is difficult, but there comes a time when it's time to move on, and I still miss CNN. I will always miss CNN. I'll miss the people I worked with. I'll miss the kinds of stories we did, as you said, stories that shook the world. But I always wanted to teach, and this opportunity came eventually a few years after I left. I also worked in another place, built some more skills and learned some new things, and to me that's really important, to keep growing and learning. And now I pass all of this to the students.
What was the biggest challenge for you as journalist?
I honestly enjoyed every moment of just learning something new, being in the midst of things that mattered, and it was challenging. I would say the only challenge at CNN, because a 24-hour news network, were the schedules, because you had to work overnights, which is daytime in Europe, in the Middle East, and that's when there's so much breaking news and you have to be on top of your game. And if I have to talk about the content itself, it's when you see tragedy and suffering, devastation. Even when 9/11 happened, you just have to be, professionalism requires you to focus, do your job, and then on the way home and at home, try somehow to process it.
What are the biggest challenges of these times?
We have to rise to the challenge. The challenge was not as big as it is now after the pandemic and now the Ukraine war and misinformation. We also had, during the election campaign, we also had disinformation, people believing different conspiracy theories, and we just have to rise to that challenge, try to report as transparently as possible.
Romanians know you from CNN. They were watching you covering the most important news on the planet. What is your message for them?
I want to thank them for watching me and this warm reception that I received in your newsroom. I did not expect it. Since it's been a few years since I've been on air, and I'm very impressed by your operation, the professionalism of everybody here that I met, and I don't see a difference between a newsroom is a newsroom, and I wish you all the best, because it's not easy to be covering news that matters in an interesting way and as objectively as possible in this environment, as you mentioned, this challenging environment.